Today's video, we have arguably one of the best Air Force One collaborations. Today's video, we have the Air Force One and Supreme collaboration. We actually first saw these back in March 2020, which feels like absolutely forever ago, but they are still very much relevant and they still have the same kind of hype around them, at least in my opinion. When they did first come out though, they were a bit more lucrative and a bit more rare to pick up. Nowadays, they do a few drops of these, so it wasn't like it was just one drop back then. We have had loads of drops since March 2020, and today's video I have the latest drop, so I picked these up directly from Supreme. These Air Force Ones have always got sold out. They're not just generally shoes that are sitting on a shelf somewhere. They did come out in the white and the black pair. I usually find as well that the black pair sells out quicker, so there was quite a few sizes sitting in the white colorway, but I have gone back. I went back like the day after and they were all sold out, so there is still that kind of demand for them. Today's video, I have picked up the white pair. Personally, for me, I'm not the kind of black Air Force One kind of girl. I just think the white is just such a classic. I have also got a normal standard Air Force One that you can pretty much pick up from anywhere, so we can do a little bit of a comparison between them to see whether it is worth it, whether it's actually worth it getting the Supreme collaboration or just get your normal standard Air Force One. Before we get into the midst of today's review, if you are new here, welcome to my channel. Make sure you stay subscribed to stay updated with all my latest videos. And if you aren't new here, welcome back to my channel and thank you as always for your continued support. Just to skim around how to pick up a pair of Air Force One Supremes, you have to go on the Supreme app or Supreme website, and you have to wait for their drop. As I mentioned before, these don't drop every single Thursday, so they do have batches of drops. But if you don't want to wait for that drop, you can obviously head over to reseller websites like StockX to pick a pair up. So you kind of have two options. You either wait for Supreme to drop them, or you do buy them for resale, but we will touch on resale later on in this video. Next thing we'll go on to, which is one of the most important things, is definitely the cost of these. So the Supreme Air Force Ones come in at £120, $120, and the normal standard Air Force Ones are only 110. So there is such a small difference between the two, and that is something to bear in mind. But again, we'll talk about resale later on. Next thing we'll go on to is boxing. So for the normal Air Force Ones, you get the standard Air Force One box. As for the Supreme Air Force Ones, you do get a different box, which I'm so glad to see because this is a special collaboration shoe. So we have the black box, and then you will see the Box Supreme logo on it as well. And then if we take a look inside, so we have the Nike and again the Supreme logo tissue paper. Also with the Supreme Air Force One, you do get given an extra pair of laces as well. For the normal Air Force One, you just get one standard pair of laces, which is already on the shoe. One thing about the Supreme collaboration is that it hasn't really changed the design of the shoe. There's just some very minor differences, but in terms of the actual silhouette, they are literally exactly the same. If you saw this from far away, and especially the side where it doesn't have the logo, it's exactly the same. No one would know the difference. The only thing obviously we're going to start off with the minor difference is that we have the Supreme box logo on the back end of the heel. Now arguably you could notice that this collaboration is not, you know, huge difference, and maybe it's not enough for people to warrant to get this shoe because the difference is very minor. But for me, I absolutely love that it is a subtle logo and a very subtle difference. I like the fact that it looks almost exactly the same as the normal standard Air Force One. Also, in terms of material of the Air Force One, again, they are both exactly the same. So you have this white leather. Creasing wise, Air Force Ones are notoriously known for creasing badly, and it's going to be exactly the same for the Supreme Air Force One as well. If you take a look towards the upper of the shoe where the laces are, this is where we will notice some more differences. So first of all, as you can see just below the laces on this leather overlay, we actually have a small swoosh Nike logo which is embroidered. This is a very, again, subtle difference. From far away you probably can't notice, but when you do look up close you will see that the normal Air Force One has absolutely nothing, but they have added this swoosh in for the Supreme Air Force One. Absolutely love that little detail, and it gives it a nice touch. I wish all the normal Air Force Ones had that. I'd really like that. Another detail that I didn't actually really notice until I got my hands on both of these Air Force Ones is that the laces are actually different. Of course they are white, but the Supreme Air Force One laces have a bit more of a texture towards it, as whereas you can see with the normal Air Force One, they are a lot smoother. On the laces as well, you will notice the little lace tag at the bottom. So the normal standard Air Force One just says AF1, whereas the Supreme Air Force One also has the Supreme logo on it. This does mean that the font, I think, is a little bit tinier on the Air Force One and the Supreme logo, but again, it makes a nice change. If we then look at the tongue, again, the tongue is exactly the same design. You've got exactly the same materials used, but on the tongue tag, you will notice that we do have a Supreme box logo again with the Nike Air Force One logo, whereas usually we just see the normal Nike Air Force One logo. And for this reason, the actual tongue tag is a little bit longer to obviously fit the Supreme box logo. Inside the sneakers, we do actually have two different sock linings. The Supreme Air Force One has more of a softer cotton feel towards it, whereas the normal Air Force One is more of a mesh material. As for the insole, we have the Supreme Nike Air logo. As for the back of the Air Force One, it's exactly the same. We have the Nike Air logo, and again for the midsole and the sole, we have exactly the same as the normal Air Force One. Everything just clean white. So usually my true to size is a size 7. That's what I get in pretty much every single Nike shoe apart from Air Force Ones. For Air Force Ones, I do have to go down one whole size. So for these, I got a UK size 6, which fit absolutely perfectly. And again, that's what I get in my normal standard Air Force Ones. Comfortability wise, they're exactly the same. You aren't getting more comfort because it is a collaboration. They are exactly the same silhouette. Air Force Ones, in my opinions, aren't, you know, the most comfortable shoe, but I'm pretty sure there are people that wear them as an everyday shoe. They're just a pretty standard fit. As I mentioned, the Supreme Air Force Ones do sell out and they don't have frequent drops, not like the standard Air Force One. So if you're not patient enough to wait for another drop, then you would be looking at the resale market, places like StockX, Laced, Kit Game, etc. I had a look on there and they are retailing for a little bit more. It obviously depends on what size you're going for, but you could be paying basically anything from $150 upwards. So they do have a little bit of resale on them. Now, I guess the question is it worth paying a resale for the Supreme Air Force Ones? And my short and simple answer would probably be no, but that doesn't mean I don't prefer them to the standard Air Force Ones. Wouldn't want to pay that extra £40, £50 because I just don't think that is worth it, because they're not that different compared to a normal standard Air Force One. I feel like if I'm absolutely desperate for an Air Force One, then I would just get a normal one. If I knew Supreme weren't ever going to release these Air Force Ones again, would I pay resale? But at the same time, resale would probably be so much more if they were to never release these again, so I probably wouldn't. I feel like for me, I would only ever pay £20, £30 above retail for these Air Force Ones. Otherwise, to be honest with you, I don't think that they are actually worth it, because you do get exactly the same features of a normal Air Force One. There is such small minor differences. It is very hard to notice. I absolutely love all the details that have gone into the Supreme Nike Air Force Ones, as well as it just been a collaboration with Supreme, which is one of the greatest brands in my opinion. To conclude all of that, if you are looking for the Supreme Air Force Ones, my advice would be just be patient. Just wait for the next drop so you can pick them up for retail. And obviously, if you are very, very desperate for these, then you can head over to a reseller website. But if you do have some patience in you, I would really strongly recommend just waiting, because it's only £10 more than a standard Air Force One. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. Make sure you are subscribed to stay updated with all of my latest videos. I hope you guys have the most blessed week, and I'll see you guys in my next one.